Joint Utility and Committee of the Whole Budget Workshop for the City of Oconomowoc on Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. Has appropriate meeting notification been made? If you would please call roll for each entity. Which is everybody here, so it doesn't matter,
You scared me.
I guess.
Alderman Mulder.
Here.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Here.
Alderman McConnell.
Here.
Alderman Youngworth.
Here.
Alderman Rosick.
Here.
Alderman Altman-Cloth. Here. Alderman Ellis. Alderman Spiegelberg.
Here.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to committee business. Consider recommend the 2026 sanitary sewer rate schedule for wastewater.
So I think there's two items on the agenda, both the wastewater rates and then also the utility budget. So because the wastewater rates, the first item on the agenda is part of the budget, what I plan on doing is basically presenting them concurrently, and then after the presentation questions, then you can
Sounds good.
make a
Go ahead.
motion on both.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, so once again, we're presenting the annual utilities operating budget for 2026. So what we're looking for here is to just review it for the utility committee and the committee of the whole, and then assuming if it's recommended to proceed, then we move forward for adoption at the next council meeting on the 18th. Just a couple things I want to bring up about the overall utilities, just in general, just in total, is just a few basic reminders that the utilities were not a separate legal entity from the city, but they're financially independent. They're self-supported by their own revenue from our customers. And not only are they financially independent from the general fund, each of the three utilities, they're also financially independent from each other as well, which is why as we go through them, they're all unique. They all have their own rates and expenses that we track. They don't receive any funding from the general fund. They do provide almost like $2 million of payment in lieu of tax to the city as well. If you put them all together, it's not a small entity. This year, for 2026, we're looking at operating revenue of about $40 million. And there's a lot of basically infrastructure and stuff that we maintain to provide those services that our residents rely on. If you add it all together, it's about $263 million of equipment that we're maintaining. For an average customer, they're paying about almost $2,000 a year for that, and it really does vary throughout the year based on, largely based on weather and seasonal usage. Of the three utilities, what's important for us is it's mostly volume dependent, and sometimes that's a little challenging to forecast. You know how much water, electricity people are going to use next year. A lot of it really ends up being weather dependent as well. Of the three utilities, so wastewater rates are set by the city council here, so that's why that's a separate agenda item. And then the other two utilities, water and electric, those rates are regulated and set by the Public Service Commission, and they set those rates based on our actual expense history, not necessarily our proposed budgets. Jumping forward to the first of the three utilities, then the wastewater utility, just some highlights about them. We've got 7,000 customers, but what's unique about wastewater is they have these 7 outlying sanitary districts where we're not billing individual homes, but just 1 meter for an entire district where we measure them just by the flow coming from that. And we have a rate study that we do every year because they pay different rates than our city customers, mostly because there's contracts that the rate study calculates, and then also they receive different levels of service as well. So even among the different sanitary districts, they have different rates among themselves. Some financial highlights with the wastewater utility. If you're looking at the three utilities, wastewater actually has the largest capital investment of their infrastructure. The biggest part of that is in the wastewater treatment plants, as you see pictured there. It's about $84 million of assets total. And that's why for all three utilities, they're very capital intensive, so that's why often for most of them, depreciation expense, where we recover the cost of those assets over a future useful life. That's usually like the biggest expense for all of these. Other financial highlights, again, every year we do, because this is the body that sets the rates for wastewater, we do a very detailed cost of service study to make sure we're recovering those costs, from our customers. And with that, there's these outside sanitary districts that we mentioned. Of those 7 sanitary districts, you can kind of see here, we each provide a different level of service to each of them, which is why they all have different rates. And we also, for those sanitary districts and our own city customers as well, we look to see if there's changes in pattern of like usage, how many new customers we're going to have, things like that. Getting into the numbers for the wastewater utility, looking at the operating income. So last year we had an operating income budget of about $5.35 million. We did make some small adjustments projected on flow, but then there is a proposed rate increase for wastewater that equates to, for an average residential customer, of about 5.8% or $1.83 a month. For a commercial customer, there aren't different rates for commercial versus residential customers. It's all the same rates. It's just a matter of how many gallons and the size of your, or actually basically just how many gallons you use. So as part of that rate study that we did, we look at all the costs that we have, and then how do we properly collect that from our customers. So that rate study model that we have, following that exactly as shown, it would have called for an 8.4% rate increase. But we do know that sometimes wastewater, they do come in under budget with their expenses. And then also, we're also mindful of the impact on our customers. We just recently implemented a water rate increase that went into effect just last month. So based on their rate of return, in the budget that you have there, we picked a middle ground of that 5.8% increase. So there you can see in yellow that $1.80 per month. And it does provide a floor of about 1% rate of return. Looking at the expense side of it then, that increase of about $325,000, that pretty much offsets the increase in expenses. Again, on this slide, I have the list of the main changes in the expenses from last year's budget to this year's budget. Again, depreciation being the highest item there. Again, all three of the utilities there are very capital intensive, so we spend a lot of stuff installing, replacing that infrastructure that we have. Wastewater has almost just under $3 million of new capital projects. If you look at that chart, it's less than what we had. 2023 was a very high year when we had digester covers and some very expensive pieces of equipment, but still ongoing investing in our infrastructure. The largest item listed there is $1.2 million, which is just the first step of a long-term treatment facility upgrade. And then every year we're replacing some pipes under the streets. One thing that's unique about wastewater is often they're able to reline the pipes rather than replace them. So that's, compared to the water utility, that helps them save a lot of money. These charts I'll show you for all three of the utilities, just giving you kind of like a long-term trend of how things have been going with the utilities. The chart on the left, those blue bars is the operating revenue, and then the red is the operating expenses. As you can see, it's a relatively stable trend as you can see, there's some inflationary costs there. That green bar on the left, so that's the resulting operating income. And one thing that's important to know is that's not profit, that's operating income, because we need that revenue, that operating income, because that is what in turn funds those capital projects that we just talked on the prior slide. The chart on the right is those blue bars, those are the assets that we have in the ground. And if you take that green bar on the left, the operating income, divided by the blue bars on the right, and then you get that red line on the right, which is our rate of return. And you can see in the chart on the left, that rate of return, it is budgeted relatively low. And a lot of that is the factor of those new assets that we have. And then also knowing that sometimes they do come in under budget. So that's why we're comfortable with that 1% floor that we're proposing. One of the things that we do also with all three utilities, just make sure we look at our peer group of utilities to see, are we doing anything different, or are we competitive with a peer group of other communities? And with this rate increase that you can see there, we're still in the lower half of utilities on this group. And I'll show a similar slide for all three utilities. One thing to keep in mind, though, is some of those most expensive utilities, there's probably some unique factor that's causing that. And then you also maybe, it's not necessarily a good thing to be the cheapest either, because that could be a sign that maybe you're not appropriately reinvesting in your infrastructure that needs to be maintained for the long term. Jumping forward then to the water utility, the second of the three utilities. For the water utility, almost all of our customers are in the city limits. We do have a few in the Village of Summit, just on, near I-94. All our customers pay the same rates. It only just varies based on how much water you're using and the size of your meter. Last year, they pumped 668 million gallons. Most of it was sold, but some of it is flushed, as you'll see driving around in the spring and fall. And then some is lost, and that's just kind of normal. We do have a new tower, a new well and reservoir that's going to be brought online soon. Water utility, one of the big things financially that's important to point out and that's unique about water is of their assets, almost half of them, of the value has been contributed by developers. And why that's important is the PSC doesn't allow us to earn a rate of return on that. So when we talk about those charts of how we fund our future capital projects, that's one of the things that holds back the water utility a little bit and then can cause larger than usual rate increases. Of the water utility, most of the revenue does come from our residential customers. About 19% of it is residential, and then also public fire protection charges are significant also. Getting into the details of the expense side of the water utility, again, you can see we did have a rate increase in that we just implemented, so in late 2025, so that will carry forward into 2026. So that adds about $1.5 million of new revenue to the water utility. The increases in expenses, again, the depreciation expense is the largest increase there. Looking at the water utilities fixed assets, those pink bars that you see there, that's us, funding that new well 8. That's not something that, that's a generational investment. One of the things that we have been doing, though, is significantly investing in our streets. I think this is the 9th year of $1 million+ of street projects. And looking into 2026, we do have $1.9 million of street projects again. That we're looking to replace and continually invest in our infrastructure. One of the things that is going to require some borrowing for the water utility, and that's something that we do watch closely as well. These two charts again, as you'll see for all three, the chart on the left, you do see the impact of the new revenue coming in for that for the water utility, and then on the right side, you do see an increase in the rate of return as that gets us up to 5%, but it's still not quite at the 6.8% level that the PSC authorizes you to be at. So that's one of the things that as we look beyond 2026 and into 2027, we're going to watch closely as far as the timing of when we apply for that next rate increase to make sure the water utility stays financially healthy. One thing that I did want to point out with that water utility is, for those street projects, usually, past couple years, we have been borrowing money for those street projects, and then we did take on debt as well for well 8. So this is something that, we did have that 33% increase that we just had, and this is a big part of that, is we have these investments and that we're going to be paying for. So financially, looking at the water utility, this year the water utility, you can see it's on the right half of the chart. Last year was probably on the left, but it's still relatively competitive with a peer group of utilities.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about this. This chart's perfect because when you showed us the wastewater budgets and where we at as a city compared to the other cities in the area, we were awfully low. And I was thinking, well, are some of these other entities higher because they're doing some big project like we're doing with water?
Yeah, so like specifically I know for like the water utility, like Waukesha, they recently switched their water source. They used to have wells, their own wells. Now they're buying it from Milwaukee.
Okay.
So that was a very significant project for them. Hustisford, I think they've always been highest, but I think they had some, I don't know, for some like treatment plant or something they had to invest in. And also being a very small community, they didn't have a lot of customers to spread that cost around.
Yeah, so the chart's helpful as a, I guess, kind of an exemplar of what's out there, but it's not necessary, because you said there could be other factors why some of these are much higher
Correct.
currently. And now we're seeing that with our water, which is, we built this big well 8, we spent a lot of money on iron filters and all this stuff, so we're now towards the top of that chart.
Sure, yeah, that's correct, that's correct. And there's, as we do try to make some effort to look forward a couple years as well. It's kind of hard to speculate, but, in the next couple years, there could be subsequent increases also needed. And where we want to get in a position eventually where we're not having to borrow every year for those street projects. And then also, as we're, the water mains that we're putting in, it's all ductile iron. It's really good quality, has a very long life. Most of the stuff we're replacing is not made of that ductile iron. So, in the next few years, we'll get beyond that, and then we're not having to invest, $1 million every year in streets.
Thanks.
Sure. And then finally, jumping on to the electric utility, financially, it's the largest of three. We've got the most number of meters, almost 12,000 meters, and we're serving customers in 5 municipalities, mostly the city of Oconomowoc and some ancillary areas right around the edges of the city. One thing that's unique about the electric utility compared to the other two is what I call the customer versus usage imbalance. So, and this is common for all electric utilities. Most of our customers are residential, but most of our sales are actually coming from our few largest customers. So like our top 10 customers is like 30% of our total usage. But that's not unusual. We're actually fortunate where we don't have like one single, say like foundry or something, that we're really revenue dependent on a single customer like that. And again, water and electric are regulated by the Public Service Commission. So financially, we don't have a power plant here in the city, so our biggest expense is buying that power from WPPI. In the 2026 budget, we're thinking that's going to hit $20 million a year. So that's 73% of our operating expenses. But we still have a lot of operational expenses here locally that we manage as well. That you're just talking for a bit about WPPI. The market price of electricity, it changes every month. So those changes, we recover those every month through an adjustment on the utility bill. So if there is some changes, that doesn't necessarily have a negative financial impact on the utility. Similar capital asset to wastewater utility, like a little bit smaller. But you can see here for electric, it's only 13% contributed, which helps them financially. Getting into the financial details of the wastewater utility. So in the budget, we're projecting maybe about 5%-6% increase in cost of purchased power. Retail sales are budgeted to increase accordingly in a similar manner. Most of the local operating expenses in the budget are increasing about $320,000. And again, depreciation, as usual, being the largest of those increases. Capital projects are large, for all three utilities, specifically also for electric. The electric utility this year, in 2026, we're showing about $2 million worth of investments in our distribution system throughout the city. And then also the past several years, especially after COVID, the price of transformers has really exploded. That's starting to come back down to earth. So now we've got a budget of about $1 million for transformers for 2026, where you can see that yellow bar in the middle. Those past 2 years, we're budgeting significantly higher for those. But about a little over $4.5 million of capital projects for electric. So electric on this one, if you look at the chart on the left, just because that cost of electricity is so high, visually it makes that operating income look relatively small compared to the total. But it is providing about $1.8 million of operating income. And one of the things that we're looking at is that rate of return. It is starting to go down. The last rate increase for electric was in August of 2023. We don't have a rate increase in the '26 budget for electric, but what we're thinking is we might start that process in 2026 because it's a long process through the PSC, and it might be something that we would start the process in '26, so it could take effect in 2027 is what we're thinking of for that.
So you're saying we're going to have a rate increase in '27? Is that what I heard? Potentially?
Potentially, yeah. We haven't formally decided that, but just looking forward, that's what we're thinking.
Why?
Because we need, basically, because the rate increase is needed to provide those funds for the capital projects. So like on this chart here, you can see that rate of return starting to go down. And that's because then we need those funds to provide the money for these capital projects that are above and beyond our like operating expenses. Like operating expenses being like salaries, gasoline, stuff like that. Whereas the capital projects, those are those assets that we, we invest, we put in the ground, and then we have a long useful life over multiple years.
So the years where we have had a surplus, what have we done with those funds?
Well, I guess I wouldn't necessarily call it a surplus. Are you talking about like the operating income, these green bars here? Because those are the funds that we use above our operating expenses. We use that to pay for the capital projects. So it's not necessarily like a profit. It's just that's how we pay we have our monthly revenue coming in and our monthly operating expenses going out. And then that difference, that operating income, those green bars, that provides the funds to pay for those.
I
Oh, okay.
understand that, but
All
my
right.
question is, what are we doing with those funds? Are we using those funds, those 1.2, can you go back to that last
Sure.
slide, please? 1.8, 2.14, 2.45. Where did that money go? Was it accumulated for projects such as these in '27? Or what's going on?
So, I mean, it's being, basically, it is being accumulated, and then that's what we're using to fund our capital projects each year, if I'm understanding your question.
So you're saving money to be able to buy, check all that out so that values in what we charge our customers. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah,
Sort of.
yeah. Like the capital projects, they're not always, we don't always have the same amount every year. As you can see, some years it's higher, some years it's lower. So that operating income, that's how we fund that. And then, so like for a utility, like the water utility, their operating income wasn't enough to fund their capital projects, which is why that utility had to take on debt. Whereas the electric utility, it hasn't had to do that. Usually doesn't, because that operating income is enough to pay for the capital projects that we do each year.
So technically in '27, we may not have an increase, but that depends on our operating income, which we will have or not have at the end of '26. Is that what I hear?
Yeah. I mean, we don't know all the details.
Of course, this is,
Yeah,
you'd
correct.
have to- right.
Yeah, and there's also, one of the things to keep in mind is, early on for the electric utility, I mentioned as the cost that we pay WPPI may change, that we recover every month through an adjustment on the utility bill. But that adjustment, it doesn't provide any additional revenue for our local operations. So every year there's inflationary increases, there's like, on the wages, there's COLA adjustments or just other, increases in operating expenses that we incur. So, since it's been like August 2023, since we've changed our base rates, if we don't do that often enough, then what you can have is like really large spikes. And we generally try to avoid that. Because water and electric are regulated, it's not as easy to do an annual increase as we are with the wastewater utility. Where the wastewater utility, they often are able to have like more frequent, smaller increases than we do with the other two utilities.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And then one of the last slides here that I have for electric then also is showing the, where we compare the electric utility to a peer group. And you, as a lot of you know from prior presentations, we're less expensive for our customers than the surrounding investor-owned utility. If you spread that at $37 a month times, all of our customers, it's providing almost $4.6 million of savings for our community. That's the residential customers. Commercial rates are also more competitive as well. But then also, we look at, of those communities within the peer group of WPPI members, we're kind of in the middle, and a lot of that has to do with, like you said, those unique situations, or also the timing since the last time those communities have gone in for a rate increase as well. So those are the main slides I've got.
Questions or comments for John? Just speak up, just jump in.
Yeah, I guess my comment would be, ultimately, if we're trying to keep rates under control, part of that is the capital projects in terms of like what we're doing each year. I mean, we hire, you guys, because you're the professionals and understanding when those projects are needed, right? And we kind of have to rely on your expertise to decide each year what's necessary. We put together some of the, one of the things we're doing tonight for the public hearing is for our wastewater treatment facilities plan, right? That kind of lays the groundwork for what we envision going forward. I think it's just like as a layman sitting here trying to understand when we need to do these things, when we don't, how long we can put them off, what's the risk if we do put them off, because that's ultimately what we're dealing with, right? If we're not doing some of those capital projects. I just know that like electric rates, water rates, this is becoming more and more emphasis for taxpayers, for people who live, in Wisconsin particularly. I think we just need to be really careful about and really diligent in justifying the projects that we're undertaking and the reasons that we're doing it. Because I don't think it's always going to be a given going forward that we're going to approve going for a rate case increase at the PSC to meet our 6.8% rate of return that we're allowed to right now. Because you're basically saying if we want to get up to that right now, we're around 5%, right? If we want to get up to the 6.8%, we'd have to file for another rate increase at the PSC, which, means another, I don't know, a couple bucks a month maybe on somebody's bill. So it all adds up. I think that's where I take it, so.
Yeah.
However, John, could it be said that because the rate increase would go for capital improvements, and if we don't have those, then we're more likely in a position of taking out debt for those capital improvements?
Yeah, that probably would be. If there, if it was determined that those capital projects do need to proceed, then yes, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and it's something that's, thought through very carefully. And then, I think earlier in the year, there's, as part of the citywide, long-term financial plan where they kind of look at, what they're projecting as the next year's capital projects, and then maybe what are the next couple years looking out as well. But it is, it's something that we look at closely. And like this year for the wastewater utility, we thought we look at their cash position, how much cash they have on hand. So for that utility, we thought we could pick that middle ground and not go all the way to what the rate model was saying, but we could take something kind of in the middle for that.
The rate, for John, too, the rate is, it's, when we go to a rate case, the PSC is ultimately deciding what additional rate we can charge, right? So we have to create a case, we have to explain what our future expenditures are, what our rate of return is expected to be, what we plan to use that for. And that's ultimately determined by that governing body in the state in Madison, right? They tell you whether you can increase the rates or not. And if you don't prove that you're doing the appropriate things with that money, your rates won't go up. So I think we kind of have to rely on you guys to give us, good information on these projects. But also, it's one thing with these projects is scary is deferred maintenance. You don't want to take a year off of replacing transformers, if we're being told we need to replace transformers. So I think that's the give and pull. Out of curiosity, what do you guys have in reserves right now for the electric utility? I think that's what Kevin's actually was kind of getting at.
Yeah, the electric utility cash reserves on their balance sheet, that I mean, it's,
Just
yeah, I don't know
approximate.
offhand, I'm sorry. but-
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know, like financially, their cash position, right now it's adequate where I know they're not needing to borrow money. You know, it's holding steady with their pace of investment, you know, whereas the water utility, that's the one where we watch very closely. And as you talked about with the PSC, their rate-setting method, one thing unfortunately is they don't allow us to say, hey, in 2 years, we want to build this new thing. They only look at our historical expenses. And then, so like for well 8, you know, they basically almost needed us to wait until it's essentially in service. And then we can adjust rates to recover that investment after the fact.
So, you know, this is what kind of concerns me a little bit, because I think we need to know that number on exactly how much is in I guess in the hopper, if you want to call it that.
Sure.
And the reason being is because now 2027 happens, and you're going for a rate increase. Is that rate increase really necessary? Or you're just trying to pad it a little more? I don't know that, okay? That's why that number's so important to me, okay?
I've got a question on rate return for specifically wastewater. It looked like we were dealing with 5 to 6% for electric, was it 4-something% for water? We said we're comfortable going down to 1%, but that's based on the assumption that our operational cost, that we've over budgeted. What happens if we did not over budget for those?
That's a good question. One thing I guess maybe I didn't point out specifically is, because the wastewater utility, it's not regulated, there isn't a formal PSC rate of return calculation for this utility. So for wastewater, we try to like come up with kind of like an equivalence calculation. And so like historically, the wastewater utility has always had like a much lower rate of return than the other utilities for that.
I think you mentioned the budget called for, it's like 5, but we said because the water increased so much, we're comfortable going down to 1 because we've always over budgeted for the operational costs. Like, for example, what happens if our costs are much higher than we budget? Does that put the utility in an uncomfortable financial situation?
It could, in theory, if that happens to like a significant amount, but we do look at like the, cash reserves position at each of the 3 utilities and their historical trends. So, you know, I think that's why we were comfortable with this like lower rate of return for the wastewater utility, and also, you know, kind of going with this kind of middle ground on that utility.
Just an overall comment, I guess. This is my, I guess, 6th time sitting through this, and I'm always impressed. I don't often know exactly what everybody's talking about, but I do know that we pay low electric rates. My friends to the east of us lost their power in that giant windstorm. You know, we won't, because we have buried lines. You know, our water, we have a 100-year well that we dug with some debt, but that doesn't impact us in a negative way. Our water treatment, we're responsible for the phosphorus level in the river, and not just through our water treatment. We can't handle it just there, but we take all of our utilities very seriously. I think we have an excellent staff. I think our rates prove it out. I mean, all we can do is look at what people next to us are paying, right? And the service we get for the investment we make, and the fact that for 6 years, this has been largely on autopilot, and we don't have questions, and it's not because we don't understand, as I joked before, it's because we have confidence in the team, and everything runs smoothly, and there aren't, hidden things out there that we feel like we need to go out. So, I mean, I just think it's a good budget that's appropriate for the future, that puts us in a financially sound position, spending money where we need to. Should always be checking that we do need to spend it, of course. But overall, I think it's one of the things that makes Oconomowoc so livable, is that our services are affordable and excellent. So.
Well said. Well said.
Well, one other thing I'll add to that is think about all the projects that we do too to keep the lakes clean. I know last year we did some of the river, there was a river like riprap project that we did to try to keep more junk and debris out of the lakes. We're responsible for the whole Oconomowoc Rivershed, and we expend money too out of these departments to keep that area clean, to keep the lakes clean. We're the only ones kind of doing that in this whole area. So I think kudos to our ratepayers on that stuff, and keeping the rates still low and reasonable and livable, I think, so.
Any other questions or comments from the council?
Thank you, John. Fantastic job.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. So, council, this is set up as to consider recommend items, committee items. I'd like to entertain a motion for item 2A.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Any further questions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper?
Aye.
Alderman McConnell?
Aye.
Alderman Youngworth?
Aye.
Alderman Rosick?
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
On to our next one, item 2A, consider recommend the 2026 utility budgets for all three entities.
Make that motion.
Second.
Any further questions or comments?
So both of these items are recommending to the November 18th Common Council. Tonight was just the review and the recommendation to that council meeting. No different than tonight, we're going to act on the city budget. On the 18th, we'll do the final action on the utility budgets.
Thank you for the clarification. Call roll, please.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper?
Aye.
Alderman McConnell?
Aye.
Alderman Youngworth?
Aye.
Alderman Rosick?
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Thank you very much. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moves. We are ahead of schedule, so we will be starting promptly at 7:30 for the City of Oconomowoc Common Council meeting.
messed up. It is. It doesn't ring at all, and after like a minute, then you get, thank you.
You good, Gina? Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call the City of Oconomowoc Common Council meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. Has appropriate meeting notification been made?
It has, Your Honor.
Would we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all and welcome. Will you please call roll, Gina?
Alderman Mulder.
Here.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Here.
Alderman McConnell.
Here.
Alderman Youngworth.
Here.
Alderman Rosick.
Here.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Here.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Here.
And Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Oh, boy. It's one of those nights? Without objection, I would like to move item 8A, number 1, the inspection service contract forward. Those gentlemen waited a really long time when they came last time. Without objection, I'd like to bring that forward.
So you're saying they appreciate waiting a long time?
Consider act on resolution 25-R3321, approving the inspection service contract with the Wisconsin Building Inspections. Mr. Herzog.
All right, thank you. I'm sure they appreciate you bringing this up, so we'll definitely explain this. This is a follow-up action item that we were working with at our last council meeting for discussion. Again, Wisconsin Building Inspections has been the city's primary team and company that we have used for our permitting and inspections for residential, commercial, and such. Inside your packet, you can kind of see the numbers of where we've been at for the last 10 years with some of the fees that we've collected and the cost shares that are contributed there. There's a 3-tiered system. The new contract will continue all of this, and the services are very similar. The team is growing on their end. Joe Tillman is our not new, inspector for the city that primary serves the area here. So if there's any questions, I can help to answer. Otherwise, a few of the members are in our audience tonight.
I'd like to open this up to the council. If you have any questions or comments for Mr. Herzog or for the folks from the inspection service. Without hearing or seeing anything, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Rosick, so moved.
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman McConnell.
Aye.
Alderman Youngworth.
Aye.
Alderman Rosick.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you for coming in. So it's probably your shortest meeting ever. We appreciate it, and we appreciate the great service you do for the city. I'd like to move on to our public hearing. We have 2 public hearings this evening. The first one is a wastewater treatment facilities plan. The purpose is to hear public input regarding the city's wastewater treatment plant facility that is proposed for submittal to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. The facilities plan presents the most cost-effective and environmentally sound alternative for the city's wastewater treatment facilities for the next 20 years.
Thank you. I have with us tonight representatives from Applied Technology. They were the engineering consultant for the facility plan. I'll just give a brief introduction for the public hearing, and I'll turn it over to them. I think it's important to note that the facility plan is planning for a 20-year horizon at the utility, and its main goal is to identify needs and to look at considerations for the future at the utility. In essence, it provides a broad roadmap for the future at the utility. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Leo and Jim.
Thank you. Thank you. As you come up, if you'd please identify yourself, that would be great.
So my name is Leo Kusek.
And I'm Jim Smith with Applied Technologies.
Thank you.
And most of you, I think, have seen this very similar presentation, so we're going to keep it really brief tonight. So we'll be talking about the need for the project, scope and costs, user rate impacts, and then a schedule for implementation. So as we talked about last time we were here in August, this is a growing community, both within the city as well as the other members of the sewer service area that are served by the wastewater treatment plant. One of the things that we have to do is to use sewer PAC's estimates, as well as the Department of Administration for the city proper, and that's what we basically did so here. And overall, we're looking at about 5,000 people more in the design year, essentially 20 years out from when this project would get going. And so that's something we have to accommodate with any recommended improvements. And so with that population growth of just shy of 5,000 folks, we're looking at on a peak basis, if you look at the number above these three bars, so that 11.3, the 12.0, and the 14.2, those are in million gallons per day of flow. And so we are seeing that go up over these next 20 or so years. And what's important to note is around 2030 is essentially when we're going to run into a capacity limitation. Capacity is important because when we had that storm event back in August, as an example, we're really testing of what the built infrastructure is able to handle. When the storms rage, the flow that comes through, we need to be able to settle out the solids from that water. And one of the key tools we use for that is clarification. And so what you can see here in yellow are the two existing primary clarifiers, as well as a third clarifier, and that would basically allow us to be able to deal with those peak year, the design year peak flows. Some of the other items that we're highlighting here today is preliminary treatment. This is essentially how do we keep garbage out of the wastewater treatment plant, and what Tim and his team have been using, they've been doing a great job with, but there is no reason to suspect we should count on it for another 20 years. Similarly, on the biosolids management, kind of the other side of the plant, being able to take those treated biosolids, get the water out of them so that we keep our costs as low as possible for taking them back to farmland. His team's doing a lot with very little. And so making sure that he has the type of equipment and processes that can do so efficiently as the main goal of this section. Last but not least, if you go and take a tour, you're going to see a lot of very outdated electrical and controls equipment. Obviously, with all of the pumps and mixers and everything else worrying about blowers in a wastewater treatment plant, you need to be able to power and control them. And this goes back quite a bit older than I am. And so that's the kind of thing that we need to make sure that we update. Last time I was here in August, I think the number we were at was probably about 21 million. We went through and double checked a few things along the way, and we ended up at about 23.4. Again, this is a 30,000 foot view, kind of roadmap. So don't get too attached to the specific number per se. The scope is really what matters. And then obviously the rates. That's a huge thing, as we were talking about in the previous part of the night. We also updated the financing. The cost for borrowing has gone up slightly since the last time I was here. And so this is, as of right now, that's again going to be subject to change. One thing I want to focus on this slide is because we're at a preliminary level, I think someone mentioned earlier, you have an incredible staff here, including on the wastewater side with Tim and his team, and trying to put those guys in the driver's seat to make this piece, not that piece, trying to find places where money can be saved, while also not holding them back from having the kind of budget so that they can make the right choices for the long term. That would very much be in line with the same approach that we have. And so there is that potential for phasing, but trying to put the Tim at the steering wheel of which pieces to phase in or to hold back on, I do think that's an appropriate choice. Obviously, the age and condition of equipment and processes, it just is what it is. Again, it'd be good to take a walk out there. And then increasing the hydraulic capacity. That's something you're going to want for those storm events because I do not think that they're going to become any less severe. So when we were here last, we presented two scenarios with the guidance that we received in August, as well as looking at this with staff, city staff. And this is what we are recommending. which is for the entire project, again, at the facility plan level. And so not binding Tim at the facility plan level that he has to phase things. Rather, for this public hearing, this is sort of a kind of going big, if you will. And we would be looking at a rate increase overall somewhere in that $9 or so per month when all of these elements of the facilities plan are incorporated. And as you can see on here, that's somewhere around a 24% rate increase. I think there's the potential that that gets decreased, but again, we don't want to bind Tim at this point when he's looking out 20 years. Here's an updated schedule. And so we are here at the public hearing today. We plan to then, with the approval of council, submit this facility plan to the DNR in about 10, 12 days to give any more comments that might trickle in. Then from there, you can kind of see the rest of the schedule. Long story short, we'll have a real number somewhere around October of 2027. So after this project's been fully designed, all of the pieces have either been included or not included. And at that point, when there's not a facility plan level, but actually kind of drilled into it, a single prime contractor will actually provide a bid, cost competitively bid, and then the city will be in a position to move forward. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you for the follow-up. We are now opening the public hearing for this item. Do we have any comments from anyone in the public this evening? Would anyone like to ask questions or comment on this open public hearing? Seeing no one here, no comments, thank you very much, gentlemen. We really appreciate it, and the follow-up and the attention to detail. Appreciate it. Thank you. We are now like to entertain a motion to close the public hearing on the wastewater treatment facility plan.
So moved.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unopposed? Okay, we'll now open the next public hearing for the 2026 budget. The purpose is to hear public comment on the proposed 2026 City of Oconomowoc budget. Mr. Hatton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So tonight's public hearing is kind of the end of a sequence of meetings that you've all been very active and patient and engaged with. We began working on this in May. It culminated in a proposed budget which was shared with you in detail September 16th. Budget workshop for general fund and the governmental funds on October 3rd. Feedback from that workshop was incorporated and brought back to this body on the 7th. Public notice was published 2 weeks ago from today on a Thursday. I believe it was the 10th. So this public notice then is a requirement before the actual adoption and setting of levy. So I just very high-level overview. So this is page 1, or the first part of the public notice that was published. So for the general fund budget, you can see in aggregate, year on year, the budget is increased by 3.5% over the approved 2025 budget. On page 2, it then goes into similar detail for all other funds, all other governmental funds. So accepting the utility funds we had the workshop for just previously with Committee of the Whole. This shows all budgeted revenues, expenditures, and resulting fund balance for all the remaining funds that we worked through together in that October 3rd budget workshop. Versus the version that was published, I did want to call out one item, and I'm going to move my cursor here. So if you recall in that workshop, I highlighted that with the fire and EMS levy adjustment that's permitted because all of the member owner communities adopted a resolution, this body included, to be able to exceed levy limit or do a levy limit adjustment for those fire charges. Here is where I've reduced, and in the original publication, we had this at the 2.592 million. This number has been reduced by that fire change and that's been offset. So the bottom line hasn't changed, $6,902,412. But I just want to call that out because it's different than what we publicized with the notice for this hearing. Moving on quickly, just a couple of main changes year on year. Always net new construction for revenue is prime driver for the change in levy. On the expense side, cost of living, staffing is a service business for our residents. Staffing is the largest expense, along with health insurance, and then again, that fire EMS increase. In summary, the proposed budget you have for 2026 is balanced as is required by state statute, respecting levy limits and balancing expenses, revenues, and the budget priorities this body established at the beginning of the process. There are reductions in police administrative services and water patrol, which we discussed in our workshop, and expanding funding for fire services, fire and EMS. Continued infrastructure investments you saw on the utility side, some of the utility impacts of some of those street projects. Same holds for the public works, and the capital spending plan is embedded in here that was reviewed and approved August 19th. It also does continue current service levels, so no significant increases, decreases in services other than what's mentioned with the water patrol and the changeover for Lac La Belle. In terms of levy impact to our residents, you've seen the slide before. There's the levy that we talked about in the public notice, $16,902,412. We did estimate an increase in the average value, or the value of an average home, from $430,000 to $455,000. What that translates to in terms of a tax bill for that average home of increased value is $1,891, or an increase of about $19 over the same picture last year. Looking back a couple of years, I thought interesting and important to point out as well, in a 2-year time period, that's an increase of $3. 25 budget was $16 reduction. This is 19. So on a 2-year horizon, it's a net increase of $3. That's what I'd prepared. As you've all seen this material before, so for the public hearing, I want to be able to include that for any members of the public that came that hadn't had that opportunity in the past sessions. But that's what I had to share with you tonight, unless there are any questions.
Steve, thank you very much for bringing this forward, and a big compliment to the council, as well as the finance department, everybody, all the department heads behind the scene. You guys have done a great job to put forward this budget for 2026. At this time, do we have any comments from anyone on this public hearing? Anyone from the audience? Seeing no comments and no one coming forward, this public hearing is now closed. I'd like to entertain a motion for the approval of minutes for October 21st, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next up are comments and suggestions from citizens. Do we have any citizens that would like to make a comment on any topic to the council at this time? If you do, please come forward, state your name and your address, and please share any comments that you have. Thank you. Go ahead, Doug Stern.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Doug
Members of
Stern.
the Council. My name is Doug Stern. My address, 215 East Pleasant Street, City of Oconomowoc. 2 weeks ago, when I was here at the last council meeting, the council spent a great deal of time wrestling with the bathroom issue over at the Village Green, and specifically the cost of the bathroom, and I understand that. The bathroom is needed, and the question of cost and what the construction's going to be, if it's going to be at all, and it is an amenity that the city would serve the city well. It should be placed adjacent to the Village Green where it's needed. previous mayors, previous councils made it a priority to make us proud of our city. We're celebrating 150 years this year. And we can all be proud of Oconomowoc energy and charm. Continue that, make it a pleasant place to live, an outstanding destination to visit. I do want to conclude by giving a shout out to our Director of Public Safety and Chief of Police, James Pfister. He has served the city of Oconomowoc for 25 years or more as a patrol officer, as a lieutenant, then captain, now Director of Public Safety and Police Chief. So my hat goes off to Chief Pfister. And his motto, his goal for himself and the City of Oconomowoc Department is integrity with a capital I. Thank you, Chief Pfister. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the council.
Thank you. Do we have any further comments from anyone in the audience? Anyone that would like to address the council on any topic? Seeing none, we'll move on. Our next item, consent agenda items. I'd like to entertain a motion for consider act on the developers agreement for the Old Highlander Snyder Way extension.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, on to our committee reports. We're going to be moving directly to item 8A2, consider and act on resolution 25R3284, approving dog park fencing project bid. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, sir. So we have two items on the agenda tonight regarding the dog park, two separate resolutions. We put together one memo that covers both of them because we felt it important to give some of the history of the dog park, some of the costs involved, and why we're putting forth a recommendation that should the council wish to proceed and start the process of having a dog park in the city, that there's a way to be able to do that. So this project started out quite a few years ago, and at that time, they put forth an estimated cost, and I think the term was back of the napkin, and I don't disagree with that, of $150,000. And at that time, it was decided that they went out and they fundraised, and they came up with, close to half, and then they came and said, would the city contribute the other $75,000? So fundraising got 75, city contributed 75, so we're at $150,000. They, at that time, kind of had this original concept of what the park would look like, the size of it, parking lot, things like that. A building would have to be removed. And so that was the project that was originally bid. And the low cost on that came in at just over $400,000. Now, there was a couple components in there that, really weren't dog park expense. And when we saw that number, we knew that we could back them out. So we pulled out the raising of the building because we have internal funds set aside for that. And we can do that as a city project on our own by reaching out and getting a contractor to demo that building for us. And the other part was a parking lot. And at this time, we're not 100% certain that we need a parking lot, as there's a large parking lot for the park already in place. So we knew that we could be moving forward without those two items in a bid. So we put that back out, expecting to get a number that was going to get a lot closer to where we needed to be. And unfortunately, we got one bid, and that came in at $375,000. So once again, the staff, Eric, Jason Herzog, they're reaching out to the contractor saying, what's up? What can we do? So we make another adjustment, and we went out and got a number for the fencing, grading, and seating. So the bare minimal components for a dog park in order to get the project started. That number, once again, came in a lot lower, but still slightly higher. It was around $250,000. We went out one other time, and we reduced some of the topsoil that was in the bid for the grading and seeding portion of it, and we obtained the 2 bids that are here tonight that we're asking for consideration on. So the fencing came in at $72,680. The grading seeding came in at $104,635, so roughly $178,000. We also have $32,000 in the design, wetland delineation, bidding, all the work for designing the entire thing, even though we're only building a part of it. So we added in that cost and saw that we were going to be roughly $78,000 short for the project. If we were to approve, if the council were to approve both recommendations, we would look for a budget amendment to use the roughly $78,000 from the contingency fund that we carry in our budget. And there's only been one expenditure out of that for the year. Usually the contingency doesn't see a lot of expenditures. So we purchased the alley down the street for $10,000 earlier this year, and that was the only expenditure that came out of there. So as the administrator, I'm confident that we could be using those funds. No one has brought up anything out there of what we should be looking at, and we're into November, so I'm very confident. Should the council opt to approve these, that we could use those funds and not have any issues. We always have our unrestricted fund balance, that if something came up, we could come to the council, take the action, and handle that item that way. So we are recommending moving forward, or we're recommending that should the council want to move forward, that the path forward would be to approve the 2 resolutions that are before you tonight, keeping in mind that the first one doesn't need a supermajority vote, because when you add up those dollars, it's within the $150,000 that we have. So the fencing part does not need a budget amendment. It's the fencing grading, or the grading and seeding portion, that when you add that into what would have already been approved for the fencing, puts us to $78,000 short, of which that could come out of the contingency fund. But that does need a budget amendment, which is a supermajority vote of the Common Council. Any questions?
I'd like to open up for questions and comments. Alderman Shellpepper.
Could you remind me how much the city donated for the skate park and the splash pad? In each of those, do you guys remember? No, sorry, I could have asked that
Yeah,
ahead of time. I just,
I'm
it
sorry,
would
I'm
be
just
good to
trying to-
get that, it would just be good to know how much we're giving. We've donated 75,000 so far for this. You know, I was comfortable doing that. I didn't have an issue with that. I supported that. I guess the concern now is, you know, we're basically asking to double that. We're saying that that's gonna hopefully spur some additional donations and investment. I guess I look at kind of what's happened with the splash pad so far. Splash pad's nice having some of the features that we have at it, but it's definitely still pretty bare. There hasn't been a lot more growth there. There haven't been new features added. I'm concerned, you know, if we do embark on the dog park piece, that, you know, we end up with maybe not a fully completed project that ends up just sitting there, that's not fully utilized. So I guess that's some of the concerns that I have. And like I said, I was okay with the 75K number. I can't remember again what we did with the skate park. You know, I'm interested to see what those numbers are, so.
Alderman Ellis.
I recall the one night Shufflebine came in and we talked about the skateboard park. And I think we were just, when he made his donation, we were just shy of 150.
The city.
That's
And how
correct.
much was the overall project itself?
It was close to 400,000,
400.
I think.
So it was, you know, I mean, we would be paying a larger portion in the city for this dog park than we would have paid in the skate park. We paid a smaller portion there. It was maybe like a quarter of the overall budget.
I mean, you can always look at the percentages
Yeah,
of
this would
total,
probably be like, you know, 200%.
but then you can also look at, well, geez, Rockwell Park, we paid 11% and the community paid 89%.
Right.
So you're going to have a lot of variation, and your facts are true. But I mean, it's what the council wants to do with it. I think that you have a really good project here that can get started. I know that the Rotary Group is still fundraising for the splash pad, but I think all your comments are very fair. Other comments from Alderman Spiegelberg.
With the September 18th bid, CW Perpero came in at 182. How did they get that bid down to 104? Am I missing something?
No, well, we made the one small change, and I don't know the magnitude of that dollar amount. I don't know if Jason Herzog does. But we reduced the amount of topsoil that was there. But they all, they have to be careful, because once their number's out there, and we're rebidding it, if they want to try and be successful, they got to look at some adjustments. So I'm going to assume that there was somewhat downward adjustment in their costs there, but then also the change in the bid scope.
That seems a large, I'm not done yet. Sorry.
I was thinking.
Okay. I think it's time to move this forward. We have donors that have been waiting for this to happen, and we've been kicking the can down the road. I think we owe it to our donors. And as far as the overage, the $77,000, Mayor, is it fair to say, or would you be able to speak to the fact that you have been in contact with someone who may be helping us out with that additional cost?
Yeah, once you get past this point, there's another donor that's willing to hopefully complete the whole project. But I don't count on any of those until the money's in the bank. And I think that's what we all have to do to protect the taxpayer. But I think what Mark is trying to propose, along with Eric, is and Jason, is here's a way you can have a usable dog park that's nice, that can go, and then they can continue to make those improvements. But I also think Chaz made some good points, is that, there comes a point where we don't want things half done. And so I think this has a really good shot at getting done within the next year, and at worst case scenario, 2 years. That's my gut feeling. But that isn't money in the bank, and that's the key part. Eric?
Just a comment and a question. It's nice to see donors. Like, anytime we see something like this, that's great to see. So that's greatly appreciated. If we do approve this with the fencing and the seating and all this, do we? And I apologize if I missed it, but I don't think I've never built a dog park before, but can I assume that the maintenance costs are relatively low moving forward once the project's done? I mean, what else can it be other than keeping the grass?
Clean up and, just general things, but yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing
it's not gonna be-
significant we're not missing as far as future.
A lot less than the splash pad, a lot less.
There's no electrical, there's no water, very
just
little water. If we
nothing
have a drinking
significant or
fountain
even-
For the animals and people.
Okay.
Mainly the animals.
Alderman Mulder?
Yeah, looking back, the thought that $150,000 would cover this was a little crazy, thinking about it now. I'm in support of moving it forward. I think that we are in a position to do so. I don't like saying we have contingency money, we should just spend it, but we do have a lot of fund balance that is unallocated. I think what that allows us to do is put something in for a lot of different constituencies. We have pickleball courts, we have a splash pad, we have a great beach and boat launch, we have the skate park. Probably a third of the community owns dogs. I don't know, I'm just guessing. It feels like, it feels like a really nice addition to that park. And that park is quickly becoming a destination for families with all types of children, different ages, and now furry children as well. So, it's disappointing we have to go back and spend more. We never want to do that, but I think that, when we looked it up, that the park in Neshota is actually about the same size as this. So it is, what do we say, Matt? That was 19 acres, and this is 15. So it is a large park, 16 total. So I think we're getting a lot, and I know that this will be really well used and probably is a benefit to more of our constituents than anything else we've done. More than pickleball, certainly more than skateboard and splash pads. So I'm in support of it.
Alderman Altman-Cloth?
Well, as usual, Matt Mulder stole one of the things I was going to say, that,
Matt.
I know. That this definitely, and I don't disagree with what Alderman Shellpepper said about, how much the city put in for the skate park, kind of those percentages, but, kind of also what percentage of our community uses the skate park compared to what percentage of our city's going to use a dog park. So if the city did put in a little bit more for that, you know, I think that's a good value. I mean, we recently put money into, you know, a street that, you know, we kind of technically didn't have to put money into fixing, that a very small portion of taxpayers are going to use. But going back to something that Alderman Youngworth had mentioned about the ongoing cost, we do have, one of like probably the biggest ongoing cost would be the bags for, you know, the cleanup. And we do have one of the donors, which was Pagankoff. They now have pet services that did donate you know, to get us started with the garbage disposals and the bags, and then going forward for the bags, as long as, you know, we obviously have their logo on it. So just something to kind of keep in mind.
Alderman Rozak?
Yeah, I think this is a good use of the money. I don't think we should count on the future donors. I do think we should be respectful for the people that have already donated and for the desire in the community of other folks that want to see this. Matt had mentioned this. The other dog parks in Waukesha County, like Menominee Park, that's 32 acres. Minoka Park, 19 acres. McGuanago Park, 34 acres. Neshota's 18. So this is small compared to some of them, or roughly the same as some of the smaller ones. This is something that people have been asking for. And we've already taxed people for this. We're using contingency money. We have $5 to $6 million in our unfunded balance that's not allocated. It's just sitting there. And every year we take contingency money, we take interest income and plop it in there, and we don't use it. Why not use the tax money that we've already taxed people for something that they want and need, that 50% of the people probably in the city are gonna use at least, you know, a couple times a year. So I'm in favor of it. I think it makes sense. Otherwise, the $75,000 in the contingency is literally just gonna go into the general fund and just sit there. We already taxed people for it last year. We keep a contingency for emergencies or for projects like this that, you know, maybe there was a little bit of an overrun or something we didn't expect, and I think that's a wise use of the money.
Any other questions or comments from council? Alderman Shellpepper?
Do we have any gaps right now on the green project that's being proposed?
Any gaps on the?
Financial gaps for the green project that's being proposed, the city green.
Oh, the city green?
Yeah.
Right now, we don't even have a project for the city green. I mean, we've given you kind of the core outline of how we would fund what we already have.
Was any
but
portion of that
until
coming
it-
from the general fund?
Yes. That's included,
Balance?
that's
Right.
included,
So,
yes.
I mean, how much of it was coming from the fund balance again?
We had 300,000 as the number right
Right,
now.
so we're gonna be pulling money out from the fund balance
Correct.
to do the green. I mean,
Yes.
technically, you could use this 78 from the contingency fund to put that in the general fund to use for the green.
Yes.
Right.
So that's a possibility. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any further questions or comments?
So this is just on the first.
This is just on the first one, which is the fencing. Remember, the second one requires a supermajority. This does not. Any further comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman McConnell.
Aye.
Alderman Youngworth. I'm sorry.
Aye.
Thank you. Alderman
sounded-
Rosick.
Wow. Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Eric, that kind of sounded like a foreign language over here. We couldn't tell if it was aye or nay.
I couldn't even hear.
It was a growl.
Over here at least, yeah, good. Mark, are there any more comments that you want to make on this second?
No, I've
No, I
walked
mean,
through the
we've
entire
seen it all.
project, so.
Do you, council, do you have questions or comments on the second item, which is approving the dog park grading and seating bid? That's item 8A3. This is the one Mark had mentioned, is a supermajority requirement based on how it would be funded. Alderman Shellpepper.
No, I would just say I voted for the First Amendment because, or the first motion because we, as a city, had already committed the 75K, that budget, that first motion was within that budget of 150,000 total. This is going above and beyond that, so that's the issue I have, is spending the additional funding on the park without really having a full plan as to where it's going. And we're talking about perhaps donors being in place, but maybe not. I think we have some concerns with how the splash pad has developed over the last year. Hopefully there'll be some more success there, but I'm just concerned with, putting additional city funds into it.
Oh, understood. Other question, Alderman Altman-Cloth.
I just want to say that even if we do end up just opening this with fencing and the seating and the grading, I think this is going to be a great place just for the dogs to run around. At the end of the day, the dogs really don't care about any of the fancy amenities. We do have ample parking. I think overall, I hate to say this about a city I love, we're not a very dog-friendly city. Our dogs are not allowed in our park areas unless it's on our paved paths. So this does give an area within our city that people, can take their dogs to. It's very walkable, right off of the trail, walkable by most communities. Not everybody has the luxury to, go to Neshota or Manuka or the different county parks. So to give the space to those furry creatures, which, back last time I did doors in Oconomowoc, I want to say that 8 out of 10 houses, there's a dog that barks when you knock a door. So.
Baby cries.
And then the baby cries too, yes. So.
And then somebody yells?
And then somebody yells at you.
Yes, okay, you guys are getting off track here.
Oh, sorry.
But the dogs just need grading and seating and a little bit of grass and a fence, and let's face it, they'll just be happy to run.
Alderman Ellis?
I'm good.
You're good? Alderman Wentworth?
I do want to say, Alderman Shellpepper, I agree with you. I mean, this is, and I brought it up earlier, seeing shortage of getting quotes and having to come up with, like that can be a problem, and that's concerning. I'm comfortable based on the contingency funds and what I'm hearing about donors, and the donors that are already accounted for, but the possible additional donors, I'm comfortable with it, but we can't continue to have projects that come in and we're looking for, this is what it was, and now we're looking for it. We can't do that. For this one, I'm comfortable with it. Just wanted to make that statement.
Alderman McConnell?
There's been a lot of history on this one, and I think it started off with, to your point, maybe some poor planning or poor estimate of how much it would cost. We all agree that that wasn't going to be realistic, but kudos to the Parks Department, because we did have multiple bids come in around $400,000, and they have worked hard and tried to get creative to make sure that we can push this forward. So I do think it has been, if we're going to spend taxpayer dollars, this is the process I want to see. We're not getting everything that we proposed. It's not going to be, the Taj Mahal of dog parks. We have done everything we can to get it to something that is palatable while also meeting a need. So kudos, and I think this is how this whole process should work.
Other questions or comments? I'm going to make one comment. I think it's very important to move this thing forward as it's presented. I think this will give a good start, and then I think that it can be finished actually fairly quickly. That is my hope, but hope is not always a good strategy. But you'll end up with a park that's something you can be proud of and something that can be used right away. So I would strongly recommend to council that you move this forward. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved, Altman-Cloth.
Second, Ellis.
Any further questions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
No.
Alderman McConnell.
Aye.
Alderman Youngworth.
Blah, 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 blah. Sorry, that's not funny. Aye.
Thank you. Alderman Rosick.
Aye.
Alderman Altman-Cloth.
Aye.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
She's got you wrong on the list or something.
Should I sit over there?
No, you're fine right So the motion it passes, and thank you for the great discussion and the conversation. This project's been a big frustration to get off the ground for a multitude of reasons. So, and thank you, Alderman Altman-Cloth and Alderman Ellis, for getting this thing started, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Right.
So I think this will be used a lot by people in the community and a great benefit and a good location. Okay,
Just make one
on to our
quick
next
note.
item. Consider act on resolution 25-R3317 for biosolids hauling 3-year extension. Tim?
Speaking of poop,
Oh, come on. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the item in front of you this evening is for a contract extension for the biosolids land application that we are involved in every year. Our annual average land application, we apply 1.75 million gallons of biosolids annually on the regional landscape. Conomowoc has a long history of doing that contractually. We've been doing it, City of Conomowoc, over 30 years using contract operations. We've utilized our current contractor since July of 2014, and that's been successful since that time. I have had the ability to go out for 2 field inspections when they're actively doing this work, and I've witnessed the contractor, Badger State Waste, acting very professionally. They are environmentally conscious, and they're certainly aware of all the regulations for the land application of the product. I do feel that an additional benefit that we get with this contractor is their ability to store large volumes of product on lagoons that they have contracts for or own. And so what that means for us is if we have a very wet spring or fall and we can't get out into farm fields, or the crops are not harvested yet, or they're eager to plant early, the city has the ability to get rid of the product that's stored in our storage containers. We can store 2.2 million gallons. We can haul it out to sites that they have. And that's not a ability that any other regional contractors I know have. So I think that's of great benefit to us. I certainly communicated with the contractor. They're interested in continuing the contract that we have in place with them. I do feel that it's a great value that we have for the community. If you go out and see the equipment that they have running and what we get for the cost, I think is quite great. Our current rate, we're paying 7 cents a gallon to get rid of this product. And it is a soil amendment that's injected into agricultural fields. The financial impact in the future with the proposed contract, our rates would go up to 7.5 cents per gallon in 2026. And in 2027 and 2028, that rate would go up to 8 cents per gallon. And so I'm recommending, after discussion or questions, approval of Resolution 25R 3317 for that contract.
Any questions or comments from council? Alderman Spiegelberg?
I'm just curious, why do some of these other regional contractors not have the ability to store the waste like Badger? And why would they not want to do that? I mean, I'm just curious.
It's, so I've been, in a previous life, we might have extra storage. We were solicited by contract haulers that would want to rent storage that we would have extra because they need that buffer capacity, just like, Badger has that capability for, but it's at a cost. All Badger does uniquely is just haul municipal waste. Most of our other contractors, they're involved in the private industry for food industries, all kinds of milk, dairy products are hauling. Badger just does municipal waste. So when they need to go, they need to go. All the municipalities have the same small window in the spring and in the fall. So I think that's why they know that niche market, and it benefits them to have that capability.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
Any other questions, comments? We're going to get into some joke time, but that's what's happening over here. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved, Rosick.
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Please call roll.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman McConnell.
Aye.
Alderman Youngworth.
Aye.
Alderman Rosick.
Aye.
Alderman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
On to our next item, old business, consider act on ordinance 25-01109 to repeal and recreate sections within section 9.02, discharging and carrying weapons. This was approved and moved on to a second reading. This is a second reading. Chief Pfister.
Yeah, we're back here for the second reading of this ordinance. The council had decided they wanted some changes. You have in front of you a red line copy showing the changes that were added. That is under section 4, number 3. Added has proper signage posted as per Wisconsin state statute, or as provided a verbal warning and
then does not wish. And the other section that was amended was under section 5A, we removed numbers 1, 2, and 3, and we moved up 4, 5, and 6 to numbers 1, 2, and 3.
Questions or comments from council? Alderman Shellpepper.
Has our esteemed city attorney reviewed these changes and find them to be agreeable?
Yeah, I mean, it's policy.
Right, well, it's not running counter to state statute in
No.
any way? It's not, okay.
No.
Thank you.
You bet.
Good question. Other comments? I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved. Second. Yeah.
Any further questions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper?
Aye.
Alderman McConnell?
Aye.
Alderman Youngworth?
Aye.
Alderman Rosick?
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
On to new business, consider act on resolution 25-R331A approving the wastewater facility plan report. Tim?
Yeah, so we saw the presentation again as part of the public hearing. So what we're interested in is seeking formal approval for the facility plan as it's drafted, and to allow our consultant engineer to submit that to the DNR on the city's behalf. Before doing that, I just briefly wanted to get some feedback from the council on potential path forward. So some next steps I would be looking at is creating a request for proposals, and what that looks like. We've kind of talked a little bit about phasing, on that potential, but I think we've reviewed internally. I don't think there's any process in any of the scope that we've talked about that would inhibit us from regulatory or anything from looking at this project in its larger conception.
So what you're asking, if I want to clarify, is that to the approval of the report and the consultants, but then also the ability to go out on an RFP based on the timeline that was presented?
Not really formally. I'm just looking for any feedback or thoughts the council have on that.
Alderman Mulder.
Yeah.
I think this makes a lot of sense to do in one large project if possible. I think it will need to be phased over a amount of time, but it all needs to be done. The longer we wait, the higher the total will go, because each piece that we delay will go up by that much more. And I think it's critical for our growth that we have this in place, and it doesn't seem like delaying small pieces 5 years or 3 years versus just bidding it out, getting it done is going to save taxpayers any money over time. They might take smaller incremental bites, but the total increase over time will be more.
That's kind of feedback I was looking at. So as we develop like a request for proposals, looking at, my goal would be to look at the whole thing, and that means we get good proposals, and we can make better decisions based on that.
And I think that was some of the feedback on the initial discussion,
Right, I just wanted
and
to
that one alderman supported that. Alderman Spiegelberg?
I was not originally in favor of doing this all sort of in one fell swoop. But if we do, and we're still phasing through this whole thing as a whole, how long potentially will that take?
So in my mind, just definitions, how I think phasing would be maybe multiple projects. I think more appropriately is sequencing is the term I would use. So we're looking at one larger project. How we sequence it, that's able to be done with good planning, working with our engineers in how we would tackle that. But I think how we write the scope, what is a priority to the city, and how we develop that request for proposals is going to dictate the engineering steps we take forward. And ultimately, based on that engineering process, we will solicit, construction costs. And at each one of those milestones, we'll be able to make better decisions on what the total cost looks like and what our palatability is for those.
And those would be coming back to council.
Right. But approximately, in your estimation, how long, how many years?
So we
before?
have, based on the schedule that was brought up, I mean, the construction project could last 2 years.
Yeah, I saw that. So you're saying if we do this in one fell swoop, you're looking at like 2 years?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Planning's going to take 1 year. Good engineering will take a year, and then construction could take 2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's dependent on availability of equipment and all kinds of things, bidding
Thank you.
atmosphere.
Alderman Rozak?
Yeah, this is a lot to think about. We discussed at length in August what this was gonna look like. It's about 27% of our total asset cost right now. So our total asset cost for the wastewater facility is 84 million. We're talking about 23, I think, for this project, you know, based on the estimate. Back to Alderman Shellpepper and Youngworth's comments about the last one. I mean, budgeting is gonna be pretty critical here. You know, if this thing comes in at 30 or 40 million, I think we're gonna start scratching our heads and, you know, wondering what the heck is going on. It's not a dog park where it's just, you know, little contingency funds, you know, so it's a lot of money. But all in, what we heard tonight and in August was that by 2030, we'll be reaching capacity limitation.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do about that other than fix it, right?
Correct.
What the experience locally on deferred maintenance, which I think is actually not a fiscally conservative thing to do, when you defer maintenance, you end up spending more. Arrowhead School District is facing that right now. They literally have buckets and hallways catching water, and they tried to get a $150 million referendum passed to, you know, fix the school, rebuild the school, and it failed.
Right.
So now they don't know what to do. Do we keep working out of this place? Do we try to fix what we have? That's a position I don't think we want to be in as a city. And providing this service is a core, I mean, this is core services. You know, this isn't a dog park, this isn't a splash pad. I mean, we have 7,000 customers. I mean, this is a core service that we need to provide, and it's got to be done right, and it's got to be done efficiently. And I think we do it efficiently, and we got to make sure it keeps getting done right.
Yeah, that's why our interest is in to put more emphasis on design initially, to make sure that we entertain good alternatives, that we listen to both the staff we have, we take field trips, do visits for looking at equipment, and really make the smart decisions up front so we don't pay a price during a construction cost or construction.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that sold me is when we were told that in 5 years we're at capacity limitations. Other than making these changes, you can't say, how do we say no? You know, just like with our wells. I mean, our other well is 120 years old next to railroad tracks and gas stations. What do? You know, it's past its useful life. You have to build a new well. I mean, these are core services we have to provide, so.
When I think what I'm hearing from the council too is they want to be kind of kept informed along the process, and I think that's really, really clear, because this is a much, much bigger impact. Alderman Youngworth.
Yeah, just a comment, because I think it's the right time. We've talked a lot about the budget and the importance of this utility, but I had the opportunity to go out earlier this summer, and Tim spent a couple hours, and if you haven't seen this, I mean, the facility's old, but Tim's team and the way they I mean, phenomenal. Like, I was out, every single person out there knew exactly what they were doing, very efficient. It was clean, it everything, it was ran really, really well, and that's kudos to you and your team. It was really old. I mean, you looked at the stuff, you guys saw it, the buttons from like a 1960s time machine or something. It was, and just, you know, right? I mean, you guys are doing as best as you can in it. So it ran really, really well. I just want to make that comment because the people running that are doing a phenomenal job.
Any other feedback? Alderman McConnell.
Yeah, I did the same tour, and for everybody listening in, I know this is kind of one of those things that's easy to forget about, but, you know, 'cause it's run so well, we never have to worry about things not working. But imagine, in Oconomowoc, where our wastewater facility is not working, and how uncomfortable that could be really quickly. So I do think making sure that we are providing this core service is important. One of the questions I have, going back to the budget stuff, and forgive me if we've already gone over this, but there was an increase of about 400,000 to the engineering and planning cost alone. And I think that's probably like a 30% increase if I'm doing math really quickly. Can we explain any of that? Because to our concerns, we're getting pretty used to things going well over budget, and we're already over budget on step one. Can we get an explanation of that?
Yeah, so when we were preparing the budget and the budget documents, we were actually pretty early on in some of the facility planning. So we used the best information we had at that time. But as we learned through the facility planning effort, the true cost, we felt that it would be appropriate to also increase the engineering cost appropriately. So we really wanted to, engineering the project is very important on the front end because you end up paying for it on the tail end. So that's why that was done.
Right. Like to entertain a motion, please?
So moved.
Second, Youngworth.
Any further questions or comments? Call roll, please.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman McConnell.
Aye.
Alderman Youngworth.
Aye.
Alderman Rosick.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Next up, consider act on the adoption of the City of Oconomowoc 2026 annual budget.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't subject you to any further numbers or presentation of the budget material. There is a memo in your packet beginning on page 225. I've included a public notice that was published for tonight's hearing. And then lastly, part of that is detailed line item changes from what was originally presented to you on September 16th in detail, and the changes that have happened from that time. So I have nothing further to add.
Questions or
unless there are
comments
questions.
for illustrious Finance Department Chair? Alderman Spiegelberg.
I just want to commend the mayor, our city administrator, this council, especially the department heads and the staff for bringing forth another balanced budget. We really are the envy of a lot of municipalities around us who can't balance their budgets and are going out, taking out debt to pay for the gap or trying to do a referendum that fails. But we have a very robust net new construction percentage, and we are very blessed to have this opportunity to balance these budgets every year. That's not gonna always be the case, because there will come a time where, now that we have restrictions on our borders, there will come a time where that net new construction number isn't as high, and we may be scrutinizing our expenses more and looking at additional potential sustainable revenue sources to balance those budgets in the future. But thank you to everyone involved. Here we are again with a fantastic balanced budget.
Other comments or questions? I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any further questions? Call roll, please.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman McConnell.
Aye.
Alderman Youngworth.
Aye.
Alderman Rosick.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Well done. Next up, consider act on setting the 2025 property tax levy for the 2026 City of Oconomowoc city budget.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And now that the budget is passed, in order to include the levy on next year's tax bills, you need to formally enact the levy for 25, levy for 26 budget.
I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second? I don't know. Do you
First.
get it?
Did you get as the first, Gina?
I
put
I
for
put
first?
Spiegelberg, but she's right in my ear.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Do second.
A second. Okay. Any
That's
other
the one I
further
heard
questions or
first.
comments?
She can just hear my voice.
We
Right.
could call
It's right
roll,
there.
please.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman McConnell.
Aye.
Alderman Youngworth.
Aye.
Alderman Rosick.
Aye.
Alderman Altman Cloth.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Mr. Fry, staff reports.
You know, I just wanted to echo some of the comments that Alderman Spiegelberg made regarding the whole budget process. And I do truly feel that in the city that we are blessed with, you know, good growth, a place that people want to be. We're maintaining, we're moving ahead, we're providing additional things for the people. But, you know, it comes down to the staff. I always say that, you know, it's all the numbers you want to talk about, but it comes down to the people. And we've got excellent department heads and excellent crews that are putting forth, you know, service every day to the citizens of the city. And they're proud of what they're doing, and we're proud of what they're doing. So I couldn't be more proud of the whole process. And also, you know, the council support, that goes a long ways. I mean, we went from spending, you know, maybe 8, 9, 10 hours working on budget workshops, you know, to 3. And that comes down to trust. It's, you know, some of it's familiarity with the system, but it also comes down to the trust of the staff and everybody putting forth numbers. And we really appreciate that. So thank you to the council for that.
Comments are from Alderman this evening? Anyone? Alderman Spiegelberg.
Hats off to the senior cohort group, who the mayor organized about 3 years ago, who just pulled off the senior resources event at the community center. oh my gosh, it was well-attended, and thanks to the police officers who were able to get people across busy Wisconsin Avenue so they could get in there and enjoy themselves and take advantage of a lot of those resources that are presented at that event.
Great. Other comments from Aldermen? Seeing no other comments, I just have one comment. I expect that the next city budget is done in half the amount of time. And I'm really proud to say that we've gone, at least in my tenure, 6 budgets that have been overwhelmingly passed. And that's really still a testament to everything that Mark said. I'm not going to repeat it, but that's really outstanding. And I can see you all are doing your homework. I can tell that you're all engaged. We don't always agree, that's okay. But at the end of the day, this city and our residents, including all of us as residents, are very fortunate for this process and how this is working. We've created an awful lot in the last 6 years. And I'm out, so my last budget. So thank you all very much. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming.